All right. Now, the topic this week, we're going with the 2026, some of the new changes that have been already voted on. And I'd say more than likely, there might be a few little changes that may happen, but very rare that you'll see one of them just completely deleted from, anything I present. Because I've been
Right.
doing this for, God, I don't know, what, 30 years. And I pretty much have seen how they vote on these and when something stays, when something doesn't. So we go through all that. All right.
Well,
Now,
I want to give you a little update. I did a little vote with like one guy at my work, and he said our podcast is better than Paul's. So we got it. That was it. I needed that one vote. So thanks for that.
all right, I didn't even need that. I already knew that.
I know, I'm just kidding.
But let me show you what they've done here, and this goes back to something we were talking about as far as manufacturer's instructions are concerned. Okay,
Yep.
now this is 110.3b that deals with examination, identification, installation, use, and listing or product certification of equipment. And this is installation and use, and they've added a new sentence here. And what it says, the installation and use instructions shall not reduce the requirements within this code. And
Sure.
then they gave a committee statement. This revision makes it clear that product installation and use instructions shall not compromise safety and must also conform to the requirements of this code. And that's why I go back and I say this is it is when the manufacturer has a testing laboratory come out and they're going to test their equipment and everything, they have to go through a product testing certification, which that product certification, and you'll remember this, it goes through and talks about all the people in 1910.7, I think it's B23. You go in there and it talks about all the people that are involved in order to do that testing certification. And therefore, that testing certification not only becomes an ANSI standard to go by, but it also is an ASTM. So
Right.
these are things that are set up. So when they're looking at this, they're saying that when you're looking at the use of these instructions, that they're not going to reduce the requirements within this code. Just because some code making panel comes in and decides, hey, we want to put our device on there, and you're going to start putting this device, and then you've got a testing and it says no GFCI protection. Trust me, they've already considered the GFCI protection requirements, and they've provided their own type of personnel protection for that equipment. So
I agree,
that
100%.
this is what this is getting into, and we're going to expand on this when we do our code change publication. We're actually going to have an author's comment that everybody can go in and see the explanation of what is actually required. When we first started doing our code change publication, we just did the code change publication with illustration and had a little write up on it. We didn't even show the text when we first started. Then later on, we started showing where the text was new, what had been struck through, and all of that. And then soon after that, you saw the National Electrical Code started doing their highlighting the text that was new. And then we did an author's comment. Then you saw these others that write these code change books. They started doing comments like we did. So
Sure.
and I can prove all that because I can show you every cycle. And the next year, somebody was doing, like we said author's comment, then I think it was Hope come in and said author's note. He made a little
Right.
different change. So
Nice.
now
Yeah. So what's all the red in there? Because
the
you have
red,
green and you
the
is that
red has been
deleted?
struck through. Yeah, it's no longer there.
Okay.
So they've redone this, and you have to pay real close attention to what I'm going to tell you here. Now, this is actually following along with NFPA 70E to a point. And
Right.
this, and if you look, 110.16 when it first started, it was an arc flash hazard warning. Well, now
Right.
they're not even saying put the warning; they're saying you have to have a marking on there.
Right.
Okay, So when you look at this, and this talks about where you're in other dwelling units, it says you have to have now a permanent arc flash marking shall be field or factory applied to service equipment and feeder supplied equipment. And then it says after that, the marking shall meet the requirements of 110.21B, which it had already stated that is clearly visible to qualified persons, and the following information shall be there. Now let's talk about something before we go a little bit further. When you go look at 110.21B, that's where you're going to get into the different type of coloring schemes. Okay, so if it's danger, it's red. If I have a
Right.
warning, it's going to be an orange, and if I'm signaling something, it's going to be in a yellow. Well, here I'm coming in, I'm giving a warning, so this tag is going to have an orange marking up on the top. It'll have an orange and then white background after that, and it tells you the minimum information that they want to see on this marking here is they want to know what the nominal system voltage is, what the arc flash boundary is, the available incident energy or minimum required level of personal protective equipment. So what they're telling you, that portion there, you can put the incident energy, and then that'll tell you what your rating is. Therefore, you know what type of PPE to wear and what the cal rating is. Or they were able, based on meeting the parameters that are in the tables, 130.7 C15A and B, depending on if it's AC or DC. Then you go to table 130.15C there. When you pick that table C15C, you pick that up. That's where you get into your hazard risk categories, where you got 1, 2, 3, or 4. So you're either going to have the incident energy or you're going to have one of those hazard risk categories. And then they want to know the date the label was applied, because when you get over to 70E, you have to look at that every 5 years anyway. Okay.
Sure.
So this is actually sort of in conformity with the 70E requirements. And if you
Sure.
look at note 2, it refers you to the new 2024 standard for electrical safety in the workplace, which is your NFPA 70E document.
Yeah,
Okay.
and keep in mind too that language of 11021B, I believe, has in there that it cannot be handwritten.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that also has your dates, and I'm sorry, 110.24A. That's where you get
Oh,
into
gotcha.
your available fault current and everything. Okay, which
Gotcha.
we're actually gonna. I think we actually had something on that, but just keep paying attention, because these are all big changes, and when you look at this, they've done quite a bit here. I mean, look at everything that struck through here. Now, this is where you get into the identification of your disconnecting means, and look at this. It says each disconnecting means in other than 1 and 2 family dwellings. Now look here, shall be legibly marked to indicate its purpose and circuit source unless located and arranged so that the purpose and the source is evident. And then it tells you the marking shall meet the requirements of what? 110.21B, which is what I
Yes,
was
sir.
just discussing there,
Hmm.
because you have certain marking criteria there, and also the environment and for which that field label is applied. So all
Yeah,
of
and
this
this
is
this
very informative.
it does make sense though. Like if you're gonna go in there and work on it, um, a lot of times, and we talked about this before in other different podcasts, that you'll have like alternate sources of energy, and so you need to know that, like if you're gonna bypass something or you're gonna try to de-energize like a circuit, you don't want that generator kicking on and backbeating or inverter or something like that. So this does kind of make sense from that standpoint to make sure that you're aware there's alternate energy sources present.
Sure, and I think this is important because this actually puts it in compliance with making sure, if say you just have a disconnect out there, and you just need a warning label out there. You know that warning label is going to be what? Orange. If it was a certain
Yep.
type of disconnect where there's danger, it'll be marked in red. So they're trying to
Yeah,
make sure that the right type of labeling is applied for your different types of disconnecting means.
Yeah, and I've actually seen fire pump disconnects or fire pump switches that basically said no PPE is there is no PPE to work on this while energized,
That's right.
and that's a
That's
red
exactly
in a
right.
red.
Sure, it'd be red. And that's what I'm saying. You get into these different ones, and this is what I was talking about a while ago. You brought up. I said they made a change over here in 110.24A, which deals with your available fault current, and then they took and made some changes there in Note 1, and I'm going to explain exactly what they did here. Now,
Okay.
the first one in A is the field marking. Now, looky there, the available fault current there is to comply with 110.21B again. So if
Right.
I looked at the portion that's on there at the service equipment, we got to have the available fault current there where there's going to be a warning there. It's a warning label, so it's going to be an orange. They're just
Right.
telling you that this is going to comply back with this. Okay. Now, if you come down and look, you'll see Note 1, they took out the 70E document there. Well, why did they take that out? Because nowhere do we really get in and discuss in the 70 document that's dealing with the available fault current. The available fault current came in and got mentioned, or they added this new section, what, about 3 cycles ago, I guess, what, about 2017.
Mm-hmm.
They added the available fault current here. And they said, now, let's think about that. Why did that get added in the first place? A lot of people don't even know this. Well, what happened was we had created the tables in the 70E document, tables 130.7 C15A, B, and C. Okay. Now, in order to apply those tables, you needed to know what the available fault current was, or short circuit currents, or however you want to say it. Then we said you also needed to know what the clearing time was. And if you didn't
Right.
meet those parameters, you couldn't use that table. Well, what was happening is if you were out in the field, you go to the service equipment, you didn't know what the available fault current was. And
Right.
so we had to put something in the code that forced the hand of the utilities in order to be able to give you the available fault current, so you could determine what what you were going to need in order to provide the proper PPE. Okay,
True.
that's that's
And
how it happened. Now, if
yeah,
you
and
look
there
at
was I
this,
know
keeps
that
it informed.
yeah, and I know that we talked about this too with Mike Barr, where they have different standards on the utility side versus our standards, because over on our side we got arc in a box, over there they got arc in air.
That's right. Two total different ones. As a matter of fact, when you
Yeah.
go in and look at 70 document, we actually go in and show you two different calculations there in Annex D, how to do the calculation for arc in a box and one that's an open air.
Right.
So,
True.
and that might be something good to eventually, when the 2024 we update everything, I'll go through and show everybody how all that ties in again. Okay.
Nice.
Now, this is another one that took place, and they're making it a little more clear. But this is the definition that used to be in Article 100, and they moved it to 110.29, which is what is considered in sight from, within sight from, or within sight. And basically, all they did is they come in and they put here where you're within sight of a building or structure or other equipment. That is the key here. Is they wanted to make sure that they're clarifying that when you're mounting something there, it's in sight from. It could be from a building, it could be from any type of structure, it could be from some type of other equipment. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that one in the code change book, and I didn't really understand. Like I didn't. Yeah, it was just it was cool. You know what I mean? Because it was like I thought it was a decent change.
It is. And matter of fact, I have an author's comment I put here. When you go over and you're looking for over 1,000 votes, they added a new section for this next cycle in 2026, which is 110.39, which is pretty much word for word exactly what you're reading here.
Nice.
Okay,
So
so
this
they
this
covered
is
it
like
both
the
ways.
so this is the proposed language for 2026.
2026.
All right.
And Then they have one more thing that got added here. Now, what this is where you're going to get into. It's like you're looking at 110.14. This is for over 1,000 volts, and what you're going to see, I'll just give you some examples here. But if you look, this is where you're getting into your temperature limitations for your termination electrical connections. And you're going to see it's going to refer you to the tables 310 point, or I'm sorry, 315.60 C1 through C20. Okay. This is where you're getting to these type of MV conductors that are over 1,000 volts. Okay. Or
Right.
medium voltage, however you want to say it. And
Right.
then it comes in and talks about your terminals and everything that's here and how you go about doing your installations and everything. And then watch this, it even goes over to the next one. And then look at here, you get your temperature limitations here, and then you got all your equipment provisions. Now look at this. Even in D here, they come in and they talk about that you still have to consider here that you can use the higher than specified ratings for the terminations. It says shall be permitted to be used for impacity adjustment, correction, or both. So
Right.
they basically just took 110.14 and required pretty much the exact same type of uh, requirements that we have in 110.40 for anything over 1,000 volts. So those right there